So let's move to the ceasefire, and we're going to start by reviewing. We've been talking about free speech and the sort of media narratives around what's going on in Palestine. We'd like to start the discussion there. So if you could pull up image number 4, Rami. This is a screenshot from an article published by the Times of Israel in the past week about the hostages. Well, they don't call them hostages. About the 600 Palestinian prisoners who were released by Israel in exchange for a handful of detainees held by Hamas. And I just want to draw your attention here to you'll see the headline, over 600 Palestinian prisoners, right in the middle of that screenshot, freed as Hamas returns floor-slain hostages. And then underneath that, it says, you may not be able to read it, but it says more than 100 murderers and life-termers released, most of them deported to Egypt. 445 post-October 7th detainees returned to Gaza. Okay, now, let's first of all deal with 100 murderers and life-termers released. These people, whoever they are, were convicted in Israel's kangaroo courts. I don't think we should attach, maybe they did what they're alleged to have done, maybe they didn't, but I don't think we should attach any credibility whatsoever to the judgments of Israel's courts when it comes to allegations of violence against Palestinians, because after all, Israel is a genocidal regime. So I don't know that these persons were innocent of being murderers, the allegation, but I certainly don't assume that they were murderers just because Israel's courts said so. But what I think is most interesting about this is that it refers to the 445 persons whom it does not describe as murderers, as life-termers. The Times of Israel describes them as post-October 7 detainees. Now, if these people had criminal convictions entered against them by Israel's civilian or military tribunals, of course, they would have been described as murderers and terrorists by the Times of Israel. The fact that they were not described that way, these 445 detainees, means that they had we can infer safely, they had no convictions entered against them whatsoever. And yet, they're not called hostages. Why are the people who were taken by Hamas into Gaza called hostages, but these 445 Palestinians who were held for no reason relating to criminal convictions, criminal charges, not referred to as hostages? This is, of course, typical of all the discussion around the prisoners who are being released by both sides. The Palestinians have hostages, the Israelis have detainees. Now, let's go something that, to my mind, is even more egregious. That would be the BBC article. This is number 5, Rami. And this, as many of you may know, that one of the releases that Hamas did pursuant to the ceasefire agreement was the body of an Israeli mother and her 2 infant children. Their bodies were released to the Israelis as part of this prisoner exchange. And Hamas said months ago that the children and the mother were killed in an airstrike. They said this months ago. So the bodies are released to the Israelis. The Israelis claim to have done a forensic examination led by this character. You can see his name highlighted there, Chen Kugel. And Chen Kugel reports, quote, "There's no evidence of injuries caused by bombing." This is what he said. And so the IDF has since insisted that these 2 children, these infant children, Ariel and Kafir, were killed with the bare hands of Hamas militants. Okay, how they could determine that from a forensic examination, not entirely clear to me how they know that they were killed with the bare hands of somebody. But, I'm not a forensic analyst. I can't comment on that really. What I can tell you is this. there has not been a shred of evidence produced by the Israeli military or government to support this claim. Not a shred. Now, it's also true that we can't be sure that Hamas is telling the truth, that they were killed in a bombing of the Israeli military. But what I can say, just applying common sense and critical thinking, when you look at the level of destruction in Gaza, it is entirely plausible that these two children were tragically killed by an Israeli bomb, and that their mother was as well. That's number one. Number two, why would Hamas kill them when it knew, based on historical experience, that they could secure the release of many more prisoners by turning over, or having the possibility of turning over, live Israeli detainees rather than the killed Israeli detainees? It wasn't consistent with the objectives of Hamas to secure the release of the largest number of Palestinian prisoners for them to kill them, nor do I think it's consistent with the principles of the organization. But you can debate that all you want. All I know is this: it doesn't make common sense. It doesn't make sense for them to have done it. It's entirely plausible that they were killed in a bombardment, and no one should attach the slightest bit of credibility whatsoever to anything that a genocidal regime says. So what actually happened tragically to that mother and the two babies, I think has not been established. But the BBC, in that article we showed you, says that Chen Kugel confirmed that they weren't killed by a bombing, even though Chen Kugel, for reasons we're about to tell you, has zero credibility. Not only is he a representative of a genocidal regime, but Chen Kugel has appeared previously in the discourse around the genocide in Gaza. And could you pull up image 6, please? And you'll see here, this is an excerpt from the Wikipedia page of Chen Kugel. And many of you will know that at the very outset, it was claimed that Hamas beheaded babies. Well, that has been debunked, that claim, which was used to justify the horrific massacres in Gaza by Israel's genocidal military, by a number of media organizations, including the Israeli media organization Haaretz, and also by Le Monde, the sort of paper of record in France, hardly a pro-Palestinian institute. So if you could pull up that image 6, Rami. Sorry, yeah, not this one, the one from Wikipedia. That's an article, just confirming that Le Monde debunked the beheaded babies claim. So here you'll see, this is his Wikipedia page. Kugel had a role as Israel's chief forensic pathologist overseeing the investigation of 7 October bodies. He told The Economist that he had seen the burnt, headless bodies of babies, although he could not say for certain whether they had been beheaded. In a piece in the media line focused on his work, Kugel again claimed that many of the bodies, including those of babies, were without heads. When asked if these had been decapitated, so not simply, that this was somehow, the word decapitated suggests that their heads were intentionally cut off. And he goes on to say, he added that it was difficult to determine whether they had been decapitated before or after death, or whether their heads had been cut off by knife or blown off by RPG. And then the Wikipedia entry says, however, Haaretz, citing sources including Israel's National Insurance Institute, Kibbutzlers and the police, reported that one baby was killed on 7th October, caused by a stray bullet in Kibbutz Be'eri. Haaretz concluded that any claims of beheaded babies were false. In a detailed investigation, Le Monde also concluded claims of beheaded babies were false. So this character, who is now saying that there's no evidence that the Bibas babies and their mother were killed in a bombing, has been pretty well discredited by Western mainstream media organizations. Now, this is the narrative that we're hearing, as we approach the termination of the first stage of the ceasefire, which is today. The question now is, what is going to happen next? So Rami, if you could remove that image, please, and thank you. So, you know, there were a series of exchanges that were to take place under the first stage, which was 6 weeks, 42 days. Today is the last day. And a key term of the ceasefire agreement was that on today, Israel was to begin withdrawing its forces from what is known as the Philadelphi corridor, which is a strip of land on the Palestinian side of the border between the Gaza Strip and Egypt. Now, could you please pull up image 9, Rami? There's been reporting around what Israel is going to do in regard to the Philadelphia corridor, which is supposed to begin evacuating today. And you'll see here in this article, this is a Turkish media outlet quoting the Israeli Defense Minister, Israel Katz. The article says that according to Katz, the Israeli military will not withdraw from the Philadelphia corridor. It will remain a quote unquote buffer zone, just like Israel's borders with Lebanon and Syria. And the article goes on to note that Israel is scheduled to start withdrawing from the 14-kilometer corridor on Saturday, that's today, under a Gaza ceasefire and prisoner exchange agreement with Hamas. And it says an Israeli official confirmed Thursday that Tel Aviv will not withdraw from the corridor on Saturday. Quote, "We will not leave the Philadelphia corridor," close quote. The public broadcaster Khan quoted the official as saying. And just remember that this corridor includes Rafah, the principal border crossing between Egypt and the Gaza Strip. And there have been hundreds and hundreds of humanitarian aid trucks sitting there waiting to bring desperately needed humanitarian aid into Gaza. But with Israel in control of Rafah, the Rafah border crossing, and the entire Philadelphia corridor, that has been impossible to achieve. And whether or not aid gets in and in what quantities from that particular border crossing is entirely in control of Israel, as long as Israel occupies the Philadelphia corridor. So I think you can fairly infer that Israel does not want to relinquish control over the amount of humanitarian aid that gets in. Now, let's be very clear here, and we can go to image 8, please, Rami. This is an article from the Times of Israel. And you'll see there that the Times of Israel is reporting that Netanyahu is holding extensive security consultations with various characters in the Israeli security apparatus. And what they are saying, you'll see the headline, that the Israelis want to, quote unquote, extend the first phase of the ceasefire, which terminated today. Well, what does that mean exactly? If you go on and read the article, you'll find out that what that means is that Israel wants to secure the release of the remaining hostages without withdrawing from the Philadelphia corridor. But that's not the deal that Israel signed. Israel signed a deal which said that the remaining hostages will only be released if if both sides comply with their obligations under the first phase. And one of those obligations on Israel's side is it commences the withdrawal from the Philadelphia corridor today. So what this all means, folks, despite all of the, language employed by the Israeli media and the Western media, you can see reporting like this in mainstream media organizations. They're saying things like, Israel wants to renegotiate the agreement or so forth. This is all nonsense. What is going on is that Israel's violating the agreement. Israel agreed that if Hamas released the designated hostages or detainees, whatever you call them, during the first phase, it would begin withdrawing today from the Philadelphia corridor and would complete its withdrawal in 9 days. Israel is saying we're not doing that. That's just a straight up violation of the ceasefire agreement. It's not entitled to renegotiate the agreement. It has no basis to renegotiate the agreement. What it is clearly trying to do is to maintain strict control over this critically important part of the Gaza Strip while securing the release of the remaining hostages.
Dimitri.
Yes, go ahead, Rami.
I mean, there's clear intent from the really beginning of the first phase of the ceasefire, the first day of the ceasefire, that Israel intended the war to continue. They didn't allow any temporary shelter, the mobile homes, to enter the Gaza Strip because it doesn't intend to let Palestinians ever settle, really. And that was from the first day. These homes were supposed to enter. I think they let in a dozen or so homes that was meant to be used for Red Cross and international aid groups that are currently based in the Gaza Strip. But Dimitri, just a question that I had, which was, can the first phase of the ceasefire continue without prisoner swaps? Because I think I remember reading the details of the first phase is that the second phase, as long as we don't get into the second phase of the ceasefire, the first phase is still in effect even after the expiration of the deadline.
Yes, as I understand the agreement, it's a very good point, Rami. As I understand the agreement, as long as they are negotiating, and apparently there is some negotiation going on right now, the ceasefire remains in effect. And it would only end if the negotiations break down and they decide, one or both sides decide that they have nothing further to discuss and they can't come to an agreement on the precise terms of the second phase. So Rami is quite correct to suggest that we could be in a period now of days or weeks where there are no further releases of detainees on either side. There's no further withdrawal of Israel from the Philadelphia corridor, the few areas of the Gaza Strip it continues to occupy. And there's no resumption of the heavy bombardment of Gaza or no further intrusion of Israeli ground forces into Gaza. So this is one of the scenarios that we're looking at. This could just we could just be in the limbo of a ceasefire with no progress really being made on any side for days or even weeks. Or the negotiation could break down at any point, in which case Israel would quite possibly resume the bombardment, send forces back into areas of the Gaza Strip it had withdrawn from at the outset of the ceasefire, or they might secure an agreement. I mean, we just don't know at this stage where this is all going to go. But in addition to the violations that Rami mentioned, they also did not allow into Gaza Strip, as they were required to, heavy equipment to remove rubble and help the emergency workers in Gaza recover bodies from demolished buildings. And the level of humanitarian aid that was coming in was far below what Israel agreed. And as Euromed Monitor has documented, during the first phase of the ceasefire, Israel has massacred well over 100 Palestinians in Gaza. So Israel has violated this ceasefire 6 ways from Sunday, just as it always violates. It treats ceasefires like toilet paper. It just did that. It's doing that in Lebanon right now as we speak.
And in Syria.
And in Syria, absolutely. So the last thing I think we want to say about this is, of course, we haven't mentioned Donald Trump. Donald Trump is reported to have, browbeat Netanyahu into entering into the ceasefire agreement to begin with. Donald Trump, since then, has made many statements suggesting that he'll go along with whatever Israel agrees in regard to the subsequent phases of the ceasefire. He's even publicly expressed skepticism that they're going to get through to the second or third phase of the ceasefire. But I think what is most remarkable, Rami, of all the things that have happened that have come out of Trump's camp since this ceasefire began, is a video that Trump just posted, or somebody posted on Trump's Instagram channel. In case you haven't seen it, we'd like to show it to you. And even if you have seen it, it's worth looking at it one more time. And I'm not going to comment as we show you this brief video. It speaks for itself. This would be video number 10, Trump Gaza video. And I think this went up on his Instagram channel. It was either 3 days ago or 2 days ago. Can you put the sound on, Rami?
Oh, sorry, were you getting any sound?
I wasn't hearing any sound.
Let me try again.
And by the way, when we finish with this video, we're going to show you a parody video of this video.
Donald is coming to set you free, bringing the light for all to see. No more tunnels, no more fear. Trump Gaza is finally here. Trump Gaza shining bright, golden future, a brand new life. Feast and dance, the deal is done. Trump Gaza #1. Trump Gaza shining bright, golden future, a brand new life. Feast and dance, the deal is done. Trump Gaza #1.
Lots we could say about this, Rami. I just want to focus on one thing, and that is, you know, since Trump came back into office, he's done a lot of highly destabilizing and outright shocking things, including this. And I've been listening to this commentary coming from people who are understandably gratified about some of the things that Trump is doing, most notably his efforts, or at least his ostensible efforts, to stop the war in Ukraine. I actually, I very much hope that Trump succeeds in bringing an end to that awful, depraved proxy war, whatever his motivation may be, okay? And there are people in the anti-imperialist community and the alternative media, you know, who I think are influenced by the fact that Trump is doing things like that. And he's also talked about reducing military spending and the necessity of avoiding World War III. So sure, anti-imperialists hear this kind of language. It's music to their ears. I get that. But a lot of people in this community of anti-imperialists are saying things like Trump is a genius. He has a master plan. He's playing 3D chess. Somebody, I'm not going to name this person, somebody I, respect in the alternative media even said he's playing 5D chess. He's like playing a form of chess that nobody else knows how to play except Donald Trump. Now, I don't know how anybody could watch this video and come to the conclusion that Trump is a master strategist. Okay, this is a video that can only have one impact on those who care about Palestinian rights and the peoples of West Asia, the vast majority of whom are already outraged, and that is they will be even more outraged by what this depraved video shows. I mean, there's a genocide ongoing as we speak, and this man is putting out on his, or allowing to be put out on his social media accounts, a video which makes Gaza seem like some kind of luxurious Donald Trump casino development project in some exotic area. There are people starving to death there as we speak. There are tens of thousands of bodies lying under the rubble, people dying of illness, all with the use or as a result of the use of American weapons, and he puts out this video. So don't tell me about no 3D chess or 5D chess or master strategist. This man is a narcissist, he's a megalomaniac, and whatever his motives may be for trying to bring an end to the Ukraine war, which I hope he succeeds in doing, this is one sick-ass human being. That's my opinion. I don't know, Rami, what do you think?
Yeah. Well, Dimitri, back in my university years, we used to debate with Israelis on campus at Concordia University, and they would always tell us Gaza could have been exactly what Qatar is, right? It could have been a thriving society living off of oil money. And the intention of saying this is to remove any form of responsibility on the suffocation of the Gazan people from Israel, and that the sole reason why the people of Gaza are oppressed is because Hamas is oppressing them, right? That's the intention. I think this is in some way Trump's intention is when that war hopefully doesn't restart, but if it does, if we don't get a ceasefire extension, the images will keep flowing over where the people of Gaza had an opportunity and a choice of getting Trump's plan, refused to do so, and any rubble in which they live in today is because they refused to accept Trump's plan. So it's really to put pressure on the people of Gaza into making them believe in an alternative reality of what Gaza could be, when in reality the people of Gaza are not suffering from famine due to their inability to produce agriculture or to sustain themselves. The people of Gaza are struggling because there is a blockade, a military blockade from sea and land, and constant bombing from the Israeli side, which is stopping any form of economic development. So I think it's a false dichotomy. It's either you get Trump's Gaza plan, and if you don't accept it, then accept to live in the ruins that you chose to live in.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and of course, all of this, what you've just described, this suffocation of Gaza was happening more than a decade before October 7th. And this whole idea that October 7th was unrelated to Israel's prior behavior is, of course, lunacy. Now, finally, on this point, before we turn to the Zelensky-Trump circus in the White House yesterday, we're just going to show you as an antidote to this sick, deranged video that appeared on Trump's Instagram feed, a parody of that video. I'm not even sure who produced this parody, but it's really, it's kind of a cathartic experience to watch it after seeing Trump Gaza.
President Trump is taking it to a much higher level. He sees a different future for that piece of land. I think it's something that could change history.
Like Rami, have we lost Rami? Unfortunately, the video froze, although it froze at the point where the baby Elon Musk is on the beach with his toy rocket, crying for some reason. You know, at the end, we don't have, in the interest of time, we're not going to show the end of it. You can find it. It's on, I retweeted this. It's on my X feed. I retweeted it. It was either today or yesterday. So if you want to see the complete video, the very end of it shows wave after wave of red water coming up on the shores of Gaza, obviously signifying the blood of Palestinians. So no more need to talk about that, but I thought that the person who produced that parody video deserves recognition for shaming these lunatics and psychopaths